Hello guys, welcome back to the MMASucka podcast. As always, I'm Frazer Krohn, and we're back after a week away. And I wanted to speak about why I had a week away. Actually, had a week off, had a week to sort of, consolidate how I'm feeling about the UFC and MMA in general at the moment. And that's how I'm going to start the show. And then going to go into talk a little bit about this past weekend's fight night card. They'll obviously, those two things will tie in together. And then I'm going to go into previewing the upcoming fight night card from Atlantic City in I think New Jersey. My American politics isn't great. Sorry, my American politics isn't great. Nor is my American geography. As always, guys, though, don't forget we are sponsored by Manscaped on the channel. The podcast is sponsored by Manscaped, so use code SUCKA. That's SUCKA SUCKA at manscaped.com. For not only 20% off, but free worldwide shipping. So yeah, Sucka code Sucka at manscaped.com. But yeah, as you can probably tell, I'm not too high on this past weekend's fight night card. And the reason for that is for me, it's uninteresting. And the same with the fight night card. Prior to this one, that was Tuivasa versus Tybura. Now, don't get me wrong, I've watched them both. I watched them extensively. Extensively. I watched them both extensively, I should say. But again, like I said, for me, they're not that interesting. And the reason for that is that, as far as I'm concerned, combat sports, whether it be boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu, or MMA are all about narrative. It's all about narratives. Yes, it's about who is the better fighter and who, skill for skill, who's better, but it's also all about narratives. And it goes back to something that's harped on about week in, week out from, the best names in the business. Goes on, I've spoken about it before. I'm not claiming myself to be one of the best names in the business, but I remember when, Tim Wheaton, my former co-host, was on the show, we spoke about it. It's frustrating that the UFC are pumping out so many shows. To be brutally honest, it's frustrating to me that the UFC are pumping out just so many shows. We had a Bellator show on Friday night from Belfast, and it was a really good, in my opinion, a really good show. Were there too many fights? No, not this time. Bellator are sometimes guilty of having too many fights, but I felt that the scheduling for the Bellator, the card was really good. It was it was a UK friendly time, which suits me anyway. But just going back to the UFC, we had a main event between Rose Namajunas and Amanda Ribas, which had no narrative behind it. For me, the only narrative was, can Rose pick up her first win at flyweight? For me, that's not a big enough narrative to get me interested in the fight. Yes, she's a former two-time champion. She obviously beat Joanna Jędrzejczyk, lost the belt to Jessica Andrade, and then beat Weili Zhang for the belt, and then lost it in one of the worst fights I've ever seen to Carla Esparza. But for me, Rose is, I don't see Rose ever being a world champion again. I personally don't even think that she'll get close to she won't even, losing a title shot. That's just my personal opinion. It's nothing against Rose herself. I just don't think that I think the game has moved on from her. I don't think she's big enough for flyweight, and I think that she's been very blessed in to pick up her first flyweight victory against Amanda Ribas, a woman who also isn't a flyweight. She's a strawweight, and she's obviously taken the fight up at flyweight because the opportunity arose to face a former champion in Namajunas. Rose coming off a loss to Manon Fiorot, one of the top girls in the division. I'll go on to talk about her later because her fight next weekend, or this weekend coming, I should say, has got me excited because there's a massive narrative around that. We're essentially picking the number one contender after after Valentina and Alexa Grasso go through their series of tough, and the winner, obviously they'll face, and then the winner will face the winner of this weekend's bout. I'm pretty sure of that. But for me, the it's like I said, fighting's all about narrative, the storyline going in. Have these two ladies got bad blood? No, they're very, respectful to each other. Have they, have they fought before? Is this a rematch? No. Is this a, a number one contenders? No. Is either woman in this fight going to go on and really push in the division and really crack the top five, crack the top three, crack the champion, No, not for me. Do these women historically put on really exciting fights, massive knockouts, massive submissions, fight of the nights? These women have good finishes, but they're not known for their finishing. Rose Namajunas, like I said, 2 fights ago, put on one of the worst fights in UFC history against Carla Esparza, losing a bout at strawweight. She then didn't put on a particularly entertaining fight, was pretty badly beaten by Manon Fiorot last time out. So why are these two women? For me, Rose Namajunas versus Amanda Ribas at best, is a main card fight. You've got a woman coming off 2 losses in Rose Namajunas, and for Amanda Ribas, you've got a woman that's, since she went 4-0 to start her UFC career, she's traded wins and losses throughout. And when she tried to make that step up to the next level, she's lost. Marina Rodriguez, Caitlin, Crimea, but Chikagian at the time, I think, and Macy Barber. They're three of the more elite girls at various different weights. She's lost. She's a girl that's stuck in between weight classes. Like I said, she took this one up at flyweight. Her last fight was at strawweight. She lost to Macy Barber at flyweight. She beat Vivian Araujo at flyweight. She's in between weight classes because, respectfully, she can't crack the top five of either weight class. But we ran a poll on the MMASucka Twitter page, and the poll simply is, simple question. After last night, do you think Rose Namajunas cracks the top five again? 56.5% no, 43.5% yes. Let me just compare Rose Namajunas, in my opinion, to the flyweight rankings. Alexa Grasso, she doesn't beat the champion. I don't think it's a close fight at all. I think Alexa Grasso really dominates her. Valentina Shevchenko, I genuinely believe that Valentina Shevchenko badly beats Rose and probably stops her. I don't think those two ladies will ever fight because they've trained together before, but I'm not sure if they're class each other as training partners. Erin Blanchfield absolutely dominates Rose Namajunas in my opinion. She's too big, she's too strong. Manon Fiorot, obviously, as we know, has already beaten Rose Namajunas. Macy Barber, I think that's a good fight, but I think Macy's too big. She's too strong. She's a big 125, and I see her future being at 135. But she beats Rose Namajunas, and then we're into the fifth, sixth, seventh ranked girls. We've got Jessica Andrade. Obviously, I think those two women are 1-1 now, so that could potentially be a trilogy bout. Caitlin Crimea or Chikagian. I think her style matches up very well with Rose Namajunas, and she's ranked number 6. I think she can keep Rose Namajunas away with her strikes. Let's not forget, Caitlin's competed up at 135, so she's much bigger than Rose Namajunas again. And then you go even further down. I think Jasmine Jasdavicius, Miranda Maverick, Casey O'Neill, Ariane Lipsky, Karina Silva, Tracy Cortez. I think all of these girls give Rose Namajunas massive problems because they're all big, strong girls. Casey O'Neill, Miranda Maverick, and Jasmine Jasdavicius, in particular, I think 15th, 14th, and 13th. I think they give Rose Namajunas hell, and I think there's even girls at strawweight that really still beat Rose Namajunas. But obviously, we assume that her future will be at flyweight. She won the fight against Amanda Ribas. I wouldn't go back and watch it if I was you. It was a close fight. 49-46 on 2 scorecards and 48-47 on one. I had it 48-47 to Namajunas. But I think with Rose, she's always struggled with the mental game. It's why she moved up in weight to flyweight to potentially, cut out that tough cut down to strawweight that, I'm assuming was a tough cut for her, but she's not big enough for me. And like I said, this weekend's card did not get me excited. I didn't want to preview it. I didn't really care about the fight, to be honest, because it just wasn't interesting. There's no narrative. What the what's next for me doesn't really matter. But there were, there was a few standouts on the card. Thought Mick Parkin looked good. I thought he did enough to get past Mohammed Usman. I think Mohammed Usman needs to, round out his game. I don't really know what he is. He's a big, strong, muscular guy, but he's never looked great, to be honest. I don't think he's never going to be his brother, which has got to be frustrating for him. Mick Parkin, obviously 3-0 in the UFC now. Sorry, 3-0. All of them via decision. I think if he begins to put his foot on the gas a little bit more, I think he'll start to get guys out of there. But he hasn't yet. I'm going to come back to the Lima Severino fight in a second. Daria Zeleznikova, apologies if I butcher that one, against Montserrat Rendon was not a good fight. It was not a good showcase for women's MMA, in my opinion. I think aside from the main event, that was the only female fight on the card, and it wasn't a great it wasn't a great fight. You've got three women's fights this coming weekend that I think are all going to be a real good showcase for women's MMA. You got Yusuf Zalal returning against Billy Q. I'd originally picked Billy Q to win this one, and then I saw that he was kind of, holding his arm. It looked like he'd maybe dislocated his arm. His arm looked a bit strange when they faced off. I changed my pick to Yusuf Zalal, and that paid off. But there's two standout moments on this fight. You got bite of the night, the first ever bite of the night. Andre Lima. And the thing is, for me, I just don't understand this. I cannot understand it. It was a close fight. It wasn't like Severino was losing the fight and he was getting so frustrated and he just bit his opponent. But that, I think he's 20 years old, Severino, and he's been cut from the UFC. Bite of the night. He bit his opponent, instantly disqualified, instantly cut from the UFC for what? 3 seconds of madness. I agree with the cut. I agree. Cut him, disqualify him. But you've got to question what was going through his head at the time. Just crazy, crazy scene. And I do hope that he's got, good people around him to support him, because I don't think he's a bad guy. I think I don't really know what went through his head, but we've got to remember that these two guys, from what I understand, they're from rival gyms. There's a lot of bad blood going into the fight, and he's obviously reacted. He's frustrated in there. He's been taken down in the first round, taken down in that second round as well. Sorry, he'd taken down in the first round, taken down in the second. He was doing well in the fight, which is the most confusing thing for me. It was a fairly close fight, in my opinion. I think he probably won the first round, although Andre Lima did have the 2 submission attempts. Just crazy scenes. And fair play to Andre Lima. He's lent into that being bit. He obviously got the 50K bite of the night bonus, which I hope that we never see again, but it is what it is. It's fun. Fair play to Dana White. This is what gets headlines, and Dana White knows more than anyone what gets headlines. So rewarding Lima 50K for bite of the night is a stroke of genius, I think, by Dana White. And obviously Lima getting the tattoo to commemorate the bite of the night. Is like I said, a stroke of genius. But the standout performance, Peyton Talbot, without a shadow of a doubt, this guy is looking like a potential world champion. He 2-0 in the UFC at the moment, and he's, like I said, 2-0 in the UFC, and he's looking really good. He just absolutely dominated Cameron Simon, who, let's not forget, Cameron Simon is a legit guy. I think he was. Yeah, he came through the Contender Series. He picked up 3 wins in the UFC, two by finish. He lost to C-Rod, Christian Rodriguez, last time out. Obviously, Christian Rodriguez picked up the win last week. But then Peyton Talbot just came in, showed him absolutely no respect, showed one of the most well-rounded striking performances that we've seen in the octagon in a long, long time. He was cool, calm, and collected in there. He's clearly got a fun personality. It was just an absolute dominant performance. How Cameron Simon recovered from that knee that Talbot landed in the first round, I have no idea. He was slick, he was mean, he was landing big 1-2s, leg kicks, he was mixing it head, body. When he got him hurt, he was ripping to the body. Just an absolutely phenomenal performance and standout performance from Peyton Talbot. He is without a doubt one to keep an eye on. And, he's, like I say, he's 2-0 in the UFC at the moment. He competed in November, picking up a submission win. He's obviously now competed in March or towards the back end of March, let's be honest, picking up a knockout win. I want to see him out there again in July. I want to see him fight 4 times this year, 3 or 4 times at least this year. I really think, and he's 25 years old. He's got a really, fun personality and a really fan-friendly style. So I don't want to see him in the Apex again, but I do want to see him, competing. I want to see Peyton Talbot compete every week if I could. Just gonna throw it over to the Bellator just to comment on a few of those results. Corey Anderson bored the life out of me by defeating Kyle Moore by unanimous decision, 49-46 and 54 on 2 scorecards, 50-45 on another. That was for the light heavyweight title, the Bellator light heavyweight title. One of the most, and I commented in the MMASucka group chat, and a couple of guys agreed with me. He's one of the most boring fighters I can remember in recent times. This is Bellator's. If you're a Bellator fighter now, you really got to be putting on big performances, because there's guys you're now under the banner essentially of the PFL. There's guys that are better than you. Simply put, they're better than you in the PFL. You really got to stand out, and Corey Anderson stood out in such a negative way that he was just boring the life out of everybody in the arena. It was he got stood up 3 or 4 times just for not putting in any damage or not essentially not fighting. Shocking performance from Corey Anderson. Yes, he got the win, but is he the best light heavyweight in Bellator? No, we know that Vadim Nemkov is, but he's just decided to move up to heavyweight, and Corey Anderson knows that as well. He's keeping the belt warm, in my opinion, for someone who actually wants to come and fight. And like I said, it was a really boring performance, which isn't what can be said for Patricio Pitbull, who knocked out Jeremy Kennedy. I saw this one coming. The actual knockout itself, I saw it coming. He landed a 1-2, and then he landed, I think, a jab or a straight to the body. Kennedy's hands dropped, and then he was able to land that 1-2 upstairs again, rock Kennedy, and he just showed that killer instinct to finish the fight. Bellator featherweight champion Patricio Pitbull. Fabian Edwards picked up a big win against Aaron Jeffries. He'll be matched with Johnny Eblen next, who, again, Johnny Eblen, similar to Corey Anderson, does have that boring kind of lay and pray style, but hopefully Fabian Edwards can, do better than he did in the first fight. At least he was knocked out in that fight. That's going to be a really highly anticipated rematch. And Leandro Higo defeated James Gallagher by unanimous decision. Again, pretty boring fight. Both men seem very tentative, in my opinion. Lots of feinting, but not actually lots of shots being thrown. A little bit disappointing for James Gallagher, but it is what it is. But we move on to this weekend's upcoming UFC Fight Night card from Atlantic City, New Jersey, headlined by, like I said, a #1 contender, in my opinion, slot. Erin Blanchfield versus Manon Fiorot, 12-1 versus 11-1. I would say that Manon Fiorot has had a far higher level experience. Yes, she's never headlined a UFC Fight Night before, whereas Erin Blanchfield has. But if you look down the record of Manon Fiorot, she's faced 3 former title challengers and 1 former champion. She's faced Maya Bueno Silva, beat her. She faced Jennifer Maia, beat her. She faced Caitlin Cremira, beat her. And then she faced Rose Namajunas last time out and beat Rose. Erin Blanchfield's a different animal than all these women, I feel. She's got a really good submission game. She's got a really good wrestling game. She's riding very high on confidence. That run, kind of ignoring the Sarah Alpha fight, that was what it is. But she beat Miranda Maverick by decision. She tapped out JJ Aldrich. She tapped out Molly McCann in quick fashion. She tapped out Jessica Andrade in that main event. That was supposed to be Blanchfield versus Talia Santos, but Jessica Andrade filled in at late notice, and then she beat Talia Santos eventually last time out via decision. Just a really good fight. I've got a betting piece coming out on MMASucka later on this week, focusing on the 3 women's fights on this card. But this is a main event that I want to see. This is a main event that gets me excited, and this is a main event that really has a narrative around it. It does have a storyline. The winner of this is essentially going to be the next contender. They're both undefeated in the UFC, both riding, they've got um, similar records. Like I said, 12-1 for Blanchfield, 11-1 for Furo. Similar styles. The clashing of styles where Blanchfield prefers to try and get the fight to the floor, as Manon Furo try and work a karate game. I'm leaning towards Blanchfield, but Furo's takedown defense is elite, and if she can keep it on the feet, I think she wins. So I'm just really, really excited for this fight. I'm also excited for the co-main event, Vicente Luque versus Joaquin Buckley. Again, 2 guys that come to bring it and bring it in a massive way every single time. Prior to the Bilal Muhammad loss, prior to the Rafael dos Anjos win, every single one, or almost every single one of Vicente Luque's victories came via finish. Throwing it back to 2015, you've got sub, knockout, knockout, and then he lost to Leon Edwards. But then you've got sub, knockout, 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 split decision win against Mike Perry. Then he lost to Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Then doctor stoppage finish of Nico Price, knockout of Randy Brown, Darce choke of Tyron Woodley, Darce choke of Michael Chiesa. He did then lose 2 on the bounce to Bilal Muhammad and Jeff Neal, but then he beat Rafael dos Anjos last time out. Joaquin Buckley, obviously, we know him from the spinning back kick of Impa Kasanganay, the jumping spinning back kick of Impa Kasanganay. But this guy always brings it. Every single time he's an exciting fighter, whether he wins or whether he loses, it's exciting. He lost to Chris Curtis, he beat Andre Fiallo, he beat Alex Morono last time out. This is a big opportunity for Joaquin Buckley, because Vicente Luque is he's ranked number 11. Joaquin Buckley at the moment isn't ranked. Win over Vicente Luque, it's always good on your record, because Vicente Luque only loses to the best guys. You've got Leon Edwards in there, Stephen Thompson, Bilal Muhammad, and Jeff Neal. He only loses to the really best guys. That's a cracking co-main event. And in my opinion, that wouldn't have gone amiss as the main event of this past weekend's card. I think that fight was meant, Vicente Luque versus Sean Brady was meant to headline this card. Sean Brady's dropped out, Joaquin Buckley's filled in, Vicente Luque drops to the co-main event. It is what it is. It's a phenomenal fight. An intriguing fight. We've got former champion Chris Weidman looking to return for the 2nd time after his leg break. He obviously broke his leg against Uriah Hall in April of 2021. That's a horrific leg break, 10 seconds or 20 seconds, 17 seconds it is into the bout against Uriah Hall. He returned in August of last year and had that leg brutally beaten by Brad Tavares. And now he faces Bruno Silva. And it's a big ask. Bruno Silva is a really good fighter. He's got really heavy hands. He competed in M1 Challenge before entering the UFC. He entered the UFC with a knockout win, 3 knockout wins on the bounce. He went the distance with Alex Pereira. He then did lose to Gerard Meerschaert. He bounced back against Brad Tavares and knocked him out in the 1st round. He then did lose to Brendan Allen, and he lost to Shaura Bullet Magomedov last time out. It's going to be an intriguing one. I am unfortunately leaning towards Bruno Silva. Nothing against Bruno Silva. I'd like to see Chris Weidman get the win, but I want to see Chris Weidman get the win and retire. He's 39 years old, still coming off that leg break, and it's going to be difficult. But there's really good fights on this card. Main card fight, Chidi. I'm going to call him Chidi because I cannot pronounce his second name. And Joe Uena and Chidi. He's fighting the returning Reese McKee. If you remember, Reese McKee was brought in to face Khamzat Chimaev on short notice. Didn't land a single punch. I don't think on that one. Then he faced Alex Morono, lost that fight. Won 3 back-to-back in Cage Warriors. Returned last time out against Ange Looser to the UFC and lost that one. This is a massive fight for Reese McKee. Has he got what it takes to stay in the UFC? Essentially, he lost twice. He dropped down a level to Cage Warriors. He won 3 on the bounce. He's lost again. If he loses a second fight, we've got to ask some serious questions. Chidi Chidi has lost 3 on the bounce, but if you look at the guys he's lost to, Gregory Rodriguez, the RoboCop, phenomenal fighter. Albert Duraev, probably shouldn't have lost that one. That was a split decision. And Mikhail Olenzejchuk by ground and pound in the first round. He has picked up some big wins there. Marc-Andre Barrio and Dusan Todorovic, big wins for him. We've got a really good women's. Bill Algeo returns. He got that big win against Alexander Hernandez last time out. I thought that was a really good win. He takes on the returning Kyle Nelson, who won 2 straight after losing. Oh no, he drew and then won 2 straight after losing to Jai Herbert. He's just welcomed a child into the world as well, which is nice. Far down on the card for me, Lupi Godinez versus Virina Jandiroba. Too far down on the card for me. 2 ranked girls, really exciting girls. I don't quite know why it's so far down on the card. For me, that's probably a main card fight, but it's going to be very wrestling heavy, so perhaps that's why they've decided to have it slightly lower down on the card, as it were. You got the return and hope, the return of Howland Lachlan. He obviously lost in to Taylor Lapalus in Paris back in September. He returns against Angel Pacheco. Julio Arce versus Herbert Burns. Herbert Burns, I'm just looking down his record now. He hasn't competed since he lost to Daniel Pineda, elbows from crucifix. And then he lost in the second round to Bill Algeo, exhaustion from damage. Not a good sign. You've got the third women's fight on this card, Melissa Gatto versus the undefeated Victoria Dudakova. Everyone knows how high I am on Dudakova. 25 years old, really good strawweight. She missed weight last time out, but she did have staph infection supposedly. So I'm hoping that she makes weight and she puts on a bit of a performance because, she finished a lot of fights coming into the UFC. She got the win on the Contender Series. She technically has got a finish win over Estela Nunes in a debut, but Nunes, if you remember, kind of fell down and broke her arm or dislocated her elbow or something in that one. It's an awful injury to have. And then she beat Xingyang Frey last time out. I think Dudakova can go far, but like I said, she needs to be finishing fights and she needs to be making weight. And going to Tapology, opening up the card, you've got Jamal Emmers, who's always in fun fights, taking on the man who is always in fun fights as well, Nate the Train Landwehr. Struggled to get on board with the train, but I'm really, really behind this guy now. I'm really excited to see him return this weekend. And just to round off the show today, we've also got a really good Cage Warriors card from the Indigo at the O2 in London on, I think, Friday night. It might be Friday, it might be Saturday. Saturday night. Jordan Vasunic, I can't remember. The former Cage Warriors featherweight champion takes on Simone Diana in the main event. We've got Will Curry taking on Leon Alui in the co-main event. Will Curry 11-3. His opponent is 11-3 as well, so that should be highly competitive. One to keep an eye on for sure. But that's why I took a weekend away from all things combat sports. Really, I wasn't interested in the Rose Namajunas versus Amanda Ribas fight. I apologize. Peyton Talbot got me back interested in the fight. In the fight card, it was a bit of a slog. The prelims were a little bit of a slog, but this weekend's UFC Fight Night card live from Atlantic City is one of the best Fight Night cards you're going to see all year. Be sure to tune in. Like I said, guys, earlier on in the show, use code SUCKA, SUCKA at Manscaped for 20% off and free worldwide shipping. I've been Frazer Krohn. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. We've got loads of great videos coming up, and we've got loads of great videos planned ahead of UFC 300. So make sure you're locked to the channel. Thanks for listening, guys, and I'll catch you next time.